I get asked a lot how I narrowed down my allergens prior to my patch test. I've talked about this a little bit before, that I did it through trial and error, and that by the time I had my patch test, I had already tried so much stuff that it was just confirmation, but I was right. And I want to start off with a huge disclaimer that I'm not condoning this. I'm not telling you that this is what you should do. But at the same time, I understand that patch tests are insanely expensive. I'm still fighting my insurance for the $900 of the patch test I had over a year ago. So, with that said, what was my exact process? So, my first reaction was to the Beetle's UV glue. The primary problematic monomer in that glue is HEMA, so I already knew that HEMA was going to be a no-go. So the next thing I did was I tried Canny, which the only monomer in that is HPMA. I reacted, and therefore I knew I was also allergic to HPMA. After that, I tried Dip. For those of you who don't know, Dip base, it's basically an air dry glue. The primary ingredient is cyanoacrylate, which is the same ingredient in every air dry glue. And that is how I knew that I was not allergic to air dry glue and I could at least still do press-ons. So basically what I was doing here was just trying to single out ingredients by using things that only had that ingredient. I started doing this before I was even documenting it, which is why you guys have never seen me try Canny or the original Melody Susie Hema Free line, because I was going crazy trying all these things because I absolutely refused to give up on doing my nails. And then eventually that is when I realized, hey, I should be documenting this so that other people can have an idea of where to start and what I'm going through. Anyway, after that, I finally get around to trying Light Elegance, which is oligomer based, and I didn't have a reaction. So I knew that I would be okay with using products that had the ingredients in polymerized or oligomer chain form. I then tried Bio Seaweed Gel and had a reaction, but it wasn't actually to Bio Seaweed Gel. It was to Bling Galleria. They have since reformulated, but there were 2 methacrylate monomers in there that I don't remember the names of right now, but that's how I found out I was mildly allergic to those. And those 2 weren't even on my patch test. Another thing that wasn't on my patch test that really should have been, this one is in a lot of HEMA-free gels, that is acryloyl morpholine. And I found that out through trying Melody Susie, which has pretty high levels of acryloyl morpholine. And through this, I wasn't just finding out what I was allergic to, I was also finding out how I reacted to each monomer. And yes, it does differ. For example, HEMA is ironically my mildest reaction. I will only get some puffiness, some itching, but nothing too crazy. And acryloyl morpholine is my absolute worst reaction. My sidewalls will literally separate from my nail bed. They start oozing pus and blood. So I very much avoid that one. And how you react to each monomer and to which ones is entirely personal and fully dependent on your immune system. I am extremely lucky to have a relatively mild allergy in comparison to some other people who can't use any of this stuff without their nail literally falling off. And so my best advice, if you are going to do this, which again, I'm not recommending, especially if your allergy is not as mild as mine, is to try one product at a time. Because as you saw with the Bio Seaweed Gel situation, I thought I was reacting to that, but I was actually reacting to something else. So it's very important that you use one product at a time and you allow yourself at the very least 24 hours, but I recommend 2 or 3 days before you add another product on top. Also, I didn't know my allergy was going to be mild until I started trying stuff because I was willing to take that risk. But this is exactly why I suggest you don't do this and why I document the fact that I've already done it. Because for some people, it can have some very severe consequences. Anyway, that is about it for my trial and error process. I want to hear about yours if you've gone through this, how you found out what you were allergic to. And also, if you've had a patch test, what did they patch test you for? Because honestly, I feel like mine was not very comprehensive at all. It was called an adhesive panel, but they tested for a bunch of random stuff that's rarely ever in nail products and left out some stuff that usually is. I think at the end of the day, people can come for me all they want about what I do and why I do this, but I understand that it's not as easy as just go to an immunologist and get a patch test, especially in a country where access to healthcare is so limited. And even me, someone with really good insurance, is still fighting to have that patch test paid for. Insurance companies will see it as something completely optional because just stop using it. But for me, that wasn't an option. And I know that you guys don't want it to be an option for a lot of you as well. And at the end of the day, I'm just sharing my story and what worked for me. Love you. Bye.